Yeah, you hopefully. Hopefully there's something. So right now you're on X11, yes?
Yeah. I am on X11.
Okay. Is that because of the stuff you had happen before with the graphic stuff, and you just haven't tried out Wayland again, or like
No,
is X11 just fine for you right now?
I started on Wayland.
Mm.
When I did my install a couple of weeks ago, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember how long I've been using Linux. It's actually really good that I can't remember how long I've been using Linux this time, because it's getting to a point where my computer is just my computer and I forget that I'm on Linux.
Right.
That's awesome. But yeah, I started out on Wayland because Plasma 6 defaults to Wayland.
Mhm.
Plasma 5 defaulted to Xorg.
Right.
And Wayland was great. X-Wayland, not so much. Any X-Wayland application that I use, when I'm zoomed in the screen, I don't know if it's a thing with Kwin Zoom or just Kwin in general and X-Wayland, but when I hover over a text field, sometimes the cursor doesn't change to a little I-beam to tell me that there's a text field there. If I hover over a link, it doesn't always turn into a pointing finger. And it's these different cursor styles that you have in your applications. They don't work a lot of the time. A lot of the times when it does change, it gets stuck. And it doesn't sound like a big issue, but for me, the cursor is the most prominent thing I can see on my screen. It is.
Right.
It tells me what I'm hovering over. If I see it turn into that pointing finger, I know that's a clickable link. And that's very accessible to me because I can barely read, but I can still see. But it's even bigger of a problem in an application that gets busy, like Unity, where when it's recompiling scripts, the main thread is just hung because another thread's doing stuff, and there's a progress dialog. But for me, when I'm zoomed to the screen, I'm not always seeing that progress dialog. So what ended up happening a lot is I'd play socially distant, and I'd do my thing, test things, and I would exit the game. And when you exit the game, it has to reload script assemblies for some reason, and it takes a while. And whenever it loads script assemblies, my cursor turns into a beach ball.
Or a throbber.
Or a throbber, yeah.
One
of those things.
I fucking hate that term so much.
I went to say beach ball this time because I think I'm on a cursor theme that actually does have a beach ball cursor.
Just for anyone who's unaware of the throbber thing, a throbber is one of the terms used for the loading icon that your cursor will change into. Just in case you haven't seen the Pirate Software short yet.
Yeah. So it'll turn into that loading icon to tell me, yeah, I'm loading script assemblies and stuff like that. But then it will finish, and it will stay a loading icon.
Right.
Because the cursor got stuck. And I don't know about you or anyone listening, but for me, I'm very conditioned from like years and years of computer class. If you see the hourglass or the beach ball or the throbber, you don't touch anything because you're going to overload the computer. And back then that was actually true because we were on like crappy ass Dell Optiplex desktops with like 512 megs of RAM running Windows 7 when they had no business doing so. Obviously nowadays,
keys just to see if it's going to start working.
But for me, I'm just conditioned not to fuck with things while I see that icon.
That's
so
fair.
I will end up waiting for 5 minutes for the loading icon to go, and then I snap out of it and go, oh wait, it's frozen at that cursor, it's responsive, everything's fine. But that's not great.
Actually, I do have a problem that's very similar to that. I've noticed that sometimes Kden Live will stop responding, and then, so you know how like applications will usually grey out if they stop responding. I've noticed that sometimes when the application is now working again, it remains grey until I click on something in the application.
I can't say I've had that happen, but I've had that happen with Compass a few times.
I've only seen it with Kden Live, so I don't know if it's an issue just with that application or what the deal is.
Yeah. But speaking of Kwin issues, the other issue that I have with Wayland is it's very specific to me zooming in with multiple monitors. To be clear, multi-monitor zooming in KDE is a lot better, and I know it's a lot better because I wrote the code that makes it a lot better, which is great. for me, but there's one remaining bug, and it's been confirmed. They know about it. It's reported, all that stuff. But it's a bug I call heli screens, because when it happens, it feels like my workspace. All of my screens are heli. Basically, if I have a window like Discord on my left monitor, and we're zoomed out, so picture the screens as normal, because we're normal. You type in it, and everything's responsive.
Sure.
Then we zoom into the screen, and what's going to end up happening is you're going to have part of Discord on the left monitor, and another part of it on the right monitor. But when zoomed out, it's all on the left monitor. So that's the key info here.
Okay.
And when I type, once the text I'm typing ends up on the right monitor zoomed in, window repaints don't happen immediately on key presses. And I've also had it happen with right-click menus where the highlight won't immediately update across both displays. Sometimes I'll open a right-click menu and part of it will be on my left monitor, but it'll be invisible on the right. And it depends on what monitor, when zoomed out, the window is placed on. So if it were on the right monitor zoomed out, then the exact same lag would be happening on my left monitor. So that's why I call it heli screens, because one screen always updates immediately whenever things happen on it, but the other screens don't. And you get this weird kind of like, it feels a lot like screen tearing, but across multiple screens. And it's been a bug. I don't know if it's KWin 6 or Plasma 6, whatever you want to call it. I don't know if it's been introduced in that, because I've only ever used KWin Wayland on Plasma 6.
Right.
But I do know it's a Wayland specific thing, and it just does not happen on Xorg.
So that one that you've reported is not all screens update on window repaint when using zoom effect on Wayland?
Yep.
Okay. Awesome.
That's the one. And I did actually upload screenshots of what it looks like.
Oh,
particularly with right-click menus. A little hard to reproduce it with typing, but you can see how bad it can get.
Okay. Okay. So, that's a weird one.
Yeah.
I guess
I've talked.
So go on.
Go ahead.
No, go on. It's all good.
Okay. I've talked to Xavier Hugel about it, and I've actually looked in the code to see what kind of causes it and what doesn't. What I did notice is that zooming in and out of the screen, it doesn't cause that effect. And looking at the code, I know exactly why. Every time you zoom in, it adds a full repaint to the compositor scene.
That makes sense.
So, what I don't know is how they're doing partial repaints and how that's being calculated. As far as I can tell, they don't account for zoom, and that makes sense because zoom was added way before Wayland was like a thing at all. And zoom is an effect. It's not part of core KWin. It's not part of the compositor scene rendering. It's literally the way zoom works in KDE is it takes the screen as it's already been rendered and it blits it to a render target, and then it blits that render target back onto the screen, zoomed in and panned. That's all it does, and then it renders a cursor on top of it in place of the regular KDE cursor. And that's probably why I have the cursor bug on X-Wayland, but I don't know. I'd have to look in the code. But what I do know is because of the way that it renders, it is impossible for partial repaints in the current state of KWin to be able to account for how zoomed in I am and where my zoom is focused. So it's most likely just not caring at all and just repainting the left monitor, because as far as it's aware, the only things happening are on my left monitor. It doesn't matter that things are happening on my right monitor to me. To KWin, it's only on the left.
I see. I guess that would make sense.
And what we've also noticed is typically when you're typing, it will actually catch up after like a second or so. But with the right-click menu example, the reason I was able to get the screenshot of it, wasn't a screenshot, it was a photo. But the reason I was able to get those photos is because the only thing that would cause a full repaint of that area of the screen would be me moving my mouse, or, funnily enough, time. Like, the minute in the digital clock on my panel increasing by 1 would get it to repaint.
Well, yeah, because that would need to repaint so it could see the new number.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's weird. What I also noticed, and I didn't put this in the bug report yet, but if I have a full screen YouTube video playing on my right monitor, and I'm zoomed in doing stuff on my left, none of the issues happen. Because the YouTube video is constantly causing a repaint on the right monitor.
Well, here's what you can do. Put a clock that has milliseconds on it on your screen at all times. Boom. Problem solved.
I might have to do that, but depending on how the clock's implemented, it might only do a partial repaint on that screen.
Right, okay, that's fair. Just always have a YouTube video on in the background, just mute it.
Yeah, that could work. It's a lot of bandwidth, but